Hello warriors, welcome to the channel. Let's just wait for a minute for everyone to join. I'm very excited to be a part of this channel and I'm very excited to bring you all polity classes. And this is the very first class we are going for, and let's just hope it works out all well for us and for all well for you also. Just let me know if the audio and video is working fine in the comment section so that we can begin with our session. Okay, Radhika is saying session not started. Oh, let me check. It is? Okay, my team just confirmed that it has started. Radhika, just check for one more time. Okay, working fine. Hello Radhika, hello Kanupriya, thank you for joining. This is our first class of polity. For UPSC aspirants, this is gonna be a game changer. The audio and video is also working fine. Hello Pooty, good evening. Okay, all clear. So I am beginning the session now. First of all, I am Monica Mandhania and the channel is UPSC Warriors by Unacademy. Here we are coming up with polity classes and this is our very first class. So kudos to all of you and kudos to us also. For the first class, I'll share what is the plan for polity on this channel, and then I'll teach you one topic from where the polity begins. Can you guess what is the topic? Okay, first of all, I'll share the plan and then we'll discuss about the topic. So plan for polity is pretty simple. For polity, UPSC aspirants generally is concerned with constitution. So on this channel, I'll discuss all the important articles of the constitution starting from Article 1. So Article 1 and then we'll move forward with the important articles. I'll include important Supreme Court rulings as well, important judgments, important case studies, important examples. The plan is not to just stick to the static portion but to include current affairs also. So we'll incorporate that also. Live classes will be daily. The time I'll confirm because today it's 8:30, tomorrow it may change. I need to decide on that. But the duration of the class will be somewhere around 45 minutes. So that long will take daily live classes. You know what to expect. We'll discuss important articles of the Constitution starting from Article 1. The classes will be beneficial for prelims and for mains also. And the classes will be beneficial for students targeting UPSC CSE 2026, 25, 27. So these are the years and these are the target audience for the channel. And we'll be discussing all of it. We'll be discussing every PYQ also. We'll be discussing everything so that this could be the one-stop channel for your exam, for your general studies in general. So let us move forward. This is the plan. Daily live classes. I'll confirm the time with you. Today it's 8:30. Tomorrow it might change. But the live classes will be of daily frequency. All good, all good. Okay. Moving forward. The first topic we are going to discuss is making of the Constitution. So Indian polity, we'll study important articles. All these articles are written in the Constitution. So there has to be one body who has made the Constitution and that body is called Constituent Assembly. So the body responsible for making of the Constitution is Constituent Assembly. So we'll start with that. Constituent Assembly. The assembly was partially elected and partially nominated. The assembly was initially not a sovereign body. It came into picture because of one British plan. And the name of the plan is Cabinet Mission. So Cabinet Mission, because of Cabinet Mission, Constituent Assembly came in picture. The initial strength of the assembly was 389 members. and the assembly was formed in November 1946. November 1946, that is, we were not independent by then. So November 1946, Constituent Assembly came in picture. Now imagine you go out with your friends. Let us assume the number of friends is 12. You went out for a restaurant for dinner with 12 friends, and all of you have to decide on one meal which could be favorite of everyone, which satisfies everyone's appetite and satisfies everyone's expectations also. Everyone has their expectation for food or for dinner. So imagine that you need to decide on one single dish which satisfy everyone's need, and the total number of friends you are deciding for is 12. That would be a tedious task. The task in hand is very difficult because everyone have different preferences. Some of you might want vegetarian food, some of you might want non-vegetarian food, some of you might want lightweight dinner, some of you are like looking for a bulk feast. So all of these expectations can't be satisfied by one single food option. Now amplify the problem. Now listen to me carefully. There were 389 million people in India at that time. The time I am referring to is November 1946. November 1946, a Constituent Assembly was formed, and the objective of the assembly is to decide on the Constitution of India. This Constitution of India will set the ideals or the future or the fate of the entire population. In the analogy, we couldn't come up with one food preference for one night. These Constituent Assembly members had to decide the fate of the entire nation. There were lot of debates, lot of discussions, and there were lot of heated arguments as well. Constituent Assembly discussions were filled with those things. So, but we can safely say that our constituent makers did a commendable job when it comes to deciding on the future of India. They came up with a constitution which is valid and relevant till date, and it is a living document which has capacity to transform itself as per the needs of the society. So these 389 members. Now I need to remind you guys that in November 1946 the strength was decided as 389. This was revised again. The reason is pretty simple. In 1946 India was undivided. Partition didn't happen. So the parts of Pakistan and the provinces of Pakistan was also included in the Constituent Assembly. But after the Indian Independence Act, that is in 1947 August, we need to revise the strength. So let us begin now that we have set the stage. So we'll discuss what India looked like in 1946 and what are the important facts which we need to remember for the exam. Now, just let me know if everything is clear so far. Is everything good? India before and after partition. I'll change the pen color to red for this one. Everything is fine. Okay. Hello Shiv Kumar, and thank you for joining. So everything is fine at the moment. India before partition, that is in November 1946. We can expect this as India. India was like this. The parts in yellow are British provinces or British India. The parts in blue are princely states. The difference between British provinces and princely states I have already discussed in one separate video which is available on this channel, and I have shared the trick also to remember all the 11 British provinces, and it's a very interesting trick and you will never forget 11 British provinces if you watch that video. So do watch it, do give it a watch, and you will clearly appreciate it. Now for the sake of coverage, I'll tell you here also, British provinces were the territories which were under British control directly. There were legislative assemblies which was elected by people. So the British provinces, for example, United Provinces had legislative assembly. The members of the legislative assembly was elected by people themselves. For the princely states, prince used to manage the internal affairs. All of this were under British supremacy only. but Prince had some say in the internal affairs. Here, though, people used to elect the members of the Provincial Legislative Assembly. This point is very crucial for us because now I'll tell you that the Constituent Assembly was indirectly elected. Indirectly and directly elected, there are two terms. For direct election, people select their representatives. So for Provincial Legislative Assembly, there were direct elections. But for Constituent Assembly, what happened was, people of the Provincial Legislative Assembly sent their people to Constituent Assembly. So in the elections of the Constituent Assembly, masses in general didn't participate. The members of the Legislative Assembly of the provinces sent their members to the Constituent Assembly. So it was indirect election. For princely states, there were nominees which were sent to the Constituent Assembly. The Constituent Assembly had partially elected members and partially nominated members. So when it comes to elected members also, the election were not direct, it was indirect election. And this was India in 1946. You can see that there are princely states and provinces from Pakistan and Bangladesh also. So these provinces were included in the Constituent Assembly and its strength was 389. Then we did the revision and the final strength after partition came down to 299 members. So this was the case. Now moving forward, I'll tell you that there were some dilemmas in the Constituent Assembly. So let us move forward to that part. Hopefully so far it is all clear. This map, you can take the screenshot. It is from NCERT itself, so you can refer to that also. Now, I've already mentioned that the Constituent Assembly was formed in November 1946. The name of the mission under which it was formed is Cabinet Mission Plan. Cabinet is British Cabinet. 3 members from British Cabinet came to India and they finalized this plan, and by this plan only this Constituent Assembly came in picture. That's why Constituent Assembly is not called a sovereign body that time, because it was under a British plan. Total strength of the Constituent Assembly, I have repeated it so many times, so I am assuming that you are remembering it now. It was 389 seats. Total strength was 389 seats. Now I have a trick to share for you to remember these numbers. So out of this 389 seats, if you swap these numbers, the number came as 93. The visibility of a pen could be an issue. I am changing the color now. I guess it's, yeah. If you swap these, the number came out to be 93. Out of 389, the number is 93. So this was the strength of princely states. These were the seats allocated for princely states. And if you subtract 93 from 389, you will get the seats for British provinces. The seats for British provinces were 296. So there you have it. You can remember it this way. If you remember the strength, it was 389. Then you swap the numbers, the number came as 93. This was the seat allocated to princely state. Now I'm adding one more fact from my side. The fact is, these princely states never joined the Constituent Assembly. Initially, they kept their distance and these 93 people didn't join. Later on, there were discussions and negotiations and they came together and became a part of the Constituent Assembly. But initially, they kept their distance. Naturally, if you think the reason for it is, princely states had some sort of autonomy, and after independence, they had to be a part of an Indian Union. So some sort of autonomy they have to give up. So princely states were not on board with it. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel did a commendable job in getting on board all the princely states. So princely states initially didn't join. 296 seats for British India, out of which there were some chief commissioners provinces. We'll discuss it later on. There are 4 chief commissioners provinces. So we'll discuss it later on. You can just remember that 296 seats were allocated to British India. Now this fact also we know that Constituent Assembly was partially elected and partially nominated body. Now one more fact. I said that there were 389 seats. This number is for every seat there were 10 million population. So 10 million population got 1 seat. So there were 389 million population at that time and we got 389 seats. This is before partition. The seats needed revision afterwards. And there were reservation also for princely state seats. 3 communities got the seats: Muslims, Sikh and General. General includes all the other communities. So there were representation of Muslims, Sikh and General. Now this is not the conclusion you need to derive from here. Constituent Assembly had representatives from all the religion. Anglo-Indians, Christians, all were there. So the reservation were for Muslim, Sikh and then General, but there were all sorts of communities were represented there. So these are the takeaways from the Constituent Assembly. Now we are moving forward to the timeline. Here November 1946 is the year of formation. So for formation of Constituent Assembly, there has to be an election, and I have mentioned that the elections were indirect elections. So those elections happened in July-August 1946. July and August, 2 months, there were elections in 1946. The Constituent Assembly formed in November 1946. The Constituent Assembly had its first session in December 1946. First meeting happened, and in this meeting it was presided by Sachidanand Sinha. He was the most senior person, so he was the chair of the meeting for 2 days. And then on 11th December, Dr. Rajendra Prasad became the chairperson. So there were elections for this post, and the election was won by Dr. Rajendra Prasad. So he became the president of the or chairperson of the Constituent Assembly. On 11th December, the dates you could remember, or you could just remember the timeline that on December, first meeting happened on 9th, and after 2 days, Dr. Rajendra Prasad was selected as the chairperson. Then now that we have a meeting, now that we know that we need to form a constitution, we need to have some objectives. What are we planning to do? What are we aiming for India to look like? And what are the ideals we want for India to have? And to answer that question, Jawaharlal Nehru introduced Objectives Resolution. The introduction of the resolution was on December 13, 1946. Like first meeting, and after 4 days, this happened. Objective resolution was passed, and later on this objective resolution became the preamble of India. So Jawaharlal Nehru passed this, introduced this objective resolution in the Constituent Assembly, and it became the preamble of India. So these are the important timelines that we need to remember. Then finally, Indian Independence Act came. 1947 was the year, and India became independent, and the nature of the Constituent Assembly also changed afterwards. We will discuss now that what are the changes that happened after Indian Independence Act, because there are 2-3 changes which are going to happen by this act. First and foremost, partition is going to happen. So the strength of the Constituent Assembly is going to get reduced. Do you remember the number I told you? Hi Paras, hi Pavandeep, hi Meenal. Do you guys remember the number I told you in this class itself? Ki initially we started with 389 members and then it got reduced to how much? Because Indian Independence Act happened and there were revisions with respect to the strength of the assembly. Can anyone answer? Hello, Article 312. I'm still waiting for you guys to answer. And also let me know if it is clear so far. The strength of the Constituent Assembly got reduced after Indian Independence Act. Okay, it seems like you guys are not having the answer. The answer is 299. So 389 was the initial strength, and after partition the strength was reduced to 299 here. So we are discussing what are the changes that happened in the nature of the assembly after the passing of Indian Independence Act. So the strength got reduced, Constituent Assembly became fully sovereign body because initially it was proposed via cabinet mission, and for every decision we need to get the approval of British government. After independence, that approval was not needed, so Constituent Assembly became fully sovereign body. It also became the first legislative assembly or the first parliament of free India, because in addition to making of the constitution, in addition to the responsibility of making of the constitution, Constituent Assembly also got the responsibility of making laws for India. So it became the first parliament of free India. So this is the distinction. These are the points you need to remember. You can use these as introduction also. For your mains answer, you can use these points as introduction also. So these were the changes which happened. Now important decisions taken by the assembly. MEB due to partition of India, all clear, yes, all good. Okay. So important decisions taken by the assembly. First and foremost, it ratified India's membership to Commonwealth. We were part of Commonwealth and we continue to be a part of Commonwealth. It adopted national flag, national anthem, national song for us, and it also elected the first president of India, who was Dr. Rajendra Prasad. So Constituent Assembly elected, the first Parliament of Free India elected the president, who was Dr. Rajendra Prasad. So Rajendra Prasad was the chairperson of Constituent Assembly also. Rajendra Prasad was President of India, first President of India also. So these are the things, or these are the important decisions which Constituent Assembly took. Moving forward, now we need to remember the major committees which were there. So Constituent Assembly was a huge body. There were people who were given few responsibilities and few areas to work on, because too many cooks spoil the broth. So we need few people, few experts to take over some issues. And so we made 8 major committees. These are the name of the committees, and you can see that these are chaired by them. Now these people, you can see that there are repetitive names. In all, there are 4 names. J.L. Nehru, Sardar Patel, B.R. Ambedkar and Dr. Rajendra Prasad. These 4 names are important and they are the heads of these 8 committees. There's a trick to remember these also. For instance, let's start with the simple one. Dr. Ambedkar is the president or the chairperson of only one committee, that is Drafting Committee. He was the chief architect of Indian Constitution. Drafting Committee was chaired by B.R. Ambedkar. Now one committee we can easily remember. Now we are left with 7 committees. Let us start with another simple committee, which is Rules of Procedure Committee and Steering Committee. We know that Dr. Rajendra Prasad was the chairperson of Constituent Assembly. So by that rationale, he had the responsibility of maintaining the procedures in the Constituent Assembly. So Rules of Procedure Committee was headed by Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Similarly, Steering Committee supervises everything. Every committee is working fine or not. Steering Committee makes sure of that. So again, it is the responsibility of Dr. Rajendra Prasad only. So these 2 committees also you can remember. Rules of Procedure Committee and Steering Committee was chaired by Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Now, Sardar Patel was the president of Karachi Session 1931. If you remember, Karachi Session, there was a provision of fundamental rights. So Fundamental Rights, Minorities and Tribal Excluded Area Committee was chaired by Sardar Patel. You can correlate this thing to Karachi Session 1931 because Karachi Session was presided by Sardar Patel only. So you can establish a link here and you can remember that Sardar Patel was the chairperson of this thing. Now starting with the committees which was chaired by Jawaharlal Nehru, Union Power Committee and Union Constitution Committee. What are or what will be the powers of the Union was decided by this committee. Clearly it is a very important committee. All of these committees are major committees, so these are all important. The powers of the Union, the legislative and executive powers of the Union was to be decided by this committee and it was headed by J.L. Nehru. Then Union Constitution Committee, what all will be included in the union, was also decided by this committee, and it was presided by J.L. Nehru. Now I'll come to the part which is most confusing. There is one committee which is very confusing and you need to memorize this. State Committee. State Committee, we remember that Sardar Patel did a commendable job when it comes to uniting the states. So State Committee, ideally, we remember that it must be presided by Sardar Patel. Anything related to state must be presided by Sardar Patel, but that was not the case. This State Committee was presided by J.L. Nehru, and you need to remember this thing. We need to be consciously memorizing this thing because it can be confusing and it can cost us our marks. Other than that, every committee has a correlation. You can easily remember this. You can take the screenshot also if you want. It is written in your reference books also, so you can refer to those also. So these are pretty simple. 8 committees, there are 4 people responsible. Some of the people are chairperson of only one committee. For instance, B.R. Ambedkar. Other people have repetitive committees. So you need to memorize these, especially the State Committee. Now moving forward, enactment of the Constitution. The Constitution was enacted on 26 November 1949. From 2015 onwards, we are celebrating this day as Constitution Day. This is the day where Constitution got enacted. Now you must be confused that what about the Republic Day then? So some part of the Constitution got implemented or enacted from this day onwards. For instance, citizenship. We need to decide on who is the citizen of India and who is not. So 26 November 1949, some parts of the Constitution was enacted then and there. Some parts or the Constitution in general got enacted on the Republic Day only, which we celebrate as Republic Day. So this day is celebrated as Constitution Day. On the day of the enactment, we had preamble, 395 articles and 8 schedules. We have increased all of this over the years. There were many amendments and we'll discuss them also in this class only. But this was the initial status of our constitution. Article 312 is asking, can you tell me your real name? Article 312. Some of the students might get confused as to what is this article asking. Do we need to know all those committees? I would say just remember the chairpersons of these committees, because that could be helpful for option elimination, and it could be used as a value addition also. And also there are not many challenges to remember these committees. Once you go through your reference books 2 or 3 times, you will be fine with it. You will remember all the important committees. And I've discussed only major committees. There are minor committees also. So not to get confused with those, we'll stick to major committees. And for major committees, it is beneficial if you remember the names of the chairperson. Any other doubt? Kami, am I pronouncing your name right? Okay. I'm assuming that it is clear so far. Enactment of the Constitution happened and we have seen that there is a date for it, Constitutional Day. Now criticism of the Assembly, because Constituent Assembly had some problems. The problems was it was not a representative body. Not all sections were represented. Not a sovereign body, not a representative body as in when it comes to Constituent Assembly, majority of the members were part of Congress, Indian National Congress. So other political parties were not sufficiently represented, or other viewpoints were not sufficiently represented. Not a sovereign body, as I discussed, it was because of cabinet mission, Constituent Assembly was formed. So it is not a sovereign body initially. It became sovereign later on after we got independence. It was a time-consuming body. They took a lot of years. They have studied a lot of constitutions of different countries and then they decide on this. There were a lot of debates also. That was time-consuming. Few people say that it was an expensive exercise also. The Constituent Assembly was dominated by Congress. Statistically speaking, 82% of the members of the Constituent Assembly belonged to Congress. So Congress kind of had a monopoly in the Constituent Assembly, but Congress was not very united at that time. There were different ideologies also within the Congress itself. For instance, socialism, communalism and other wings of political ideologies were included in Congress. So all in all, the debates and discussions were very wholesome. But yeah, it was dominated by Congress. And there were lawyer politician domination also. It is said that Indian constitution is not that easy to understand. It was framed by lawyers and politicians, and the language is like that only. So these are some of the criticisms of the assembly, and it was a time consuming exercise. But guys, we need to understand that they had the responsibility to decide for the future of India. And for the future of India, we couldn't take the risk. This freedom didn't come easy to us. We fought for it. And that's why we need to appreciate the vision our forefathers had to make such a relevant document. Now, with that, we have come to the end of our session and we have finished making of the Indian Constitution lecture. Hope you find this lecture informative and you have learned something out of it. If so, do let us know in the comment section. If there are some other issues which you want me to address, do let us know in the comment section also. And if you liked the session, like, share, subscribe to this channel. Most probably, we are gonna meet at the same time tomorrow, 8:30, with another interesting topic. We'll be starting with Article 1 and then I'll discuss 5 articles in every live class. So this is how we are gonna proceed. And if you find this lecture informative, do let us know and like, share, subscribe to this channel. Thank you.